everybody. Welcome back to the Brute for Life podcast. On this episode, we're going to have a nice little chat, little interview with Joe from the Next 24. So, Joe, how's everything going?
Everything's going great. Life is lifing. I am steadily progressing, moving the page along, moving the movement along, and so just happy to be here.
Now, on this episode, we just want to talk about some of the things that we had touched on in the original episode, where we were talking about people who learn how to become sober and the process of going through rehab and facing some of your own fears, your own demons, and all of those things that helped contribute to getting you into those places. Not just you, but like people recovering in general. On this episode, we're going to get into what happens after sobriety, what happens after the life of drinking and learning how to become sober and what that looks like. But nobody ever talks about what life looks like after you become sober and after you go through all the programs and where life leads after that and how to maintain the course, how to continue to grow, how to continue to make your life better.
Yeah, and a lot of people don't talk about that for a good reason. The amount of people that need help getting sober far outweighs the amount of people that are looking for help afterwards. But everybody has to go through that second phase once they get sober. And so you see a lot of content, a lot of help. You see, obviously, have programs like AA and all the associated programs that you have to or is recommended to you to go through after rehab. They're all geared around one thing: getting sober. AA is good for one thing. It's good for getting you sober. They have one mission. Every day that you're sober is a good day. So they're not made to teach somebody what they should do after the fact. As long as you remain sober, they're happy and they believe that you should be happy too.
Yeah, I mean, as we had mentioned in that earlier episode, like I had gotten myself into trouble and I had to go through some of those meetings and whatever else. And 100%, they want you to be sober by following those steps. And one of the things that I really learned from that is while you're trying to get sober, you hear the stories of all these people who've gone through sobriety and lived a life with many more mistakes than potentially you have as you enter the program. And then they want you to go through all of the steps of AA to help you teach yourself how to be sober and how to start to fix some of the damage that you may have created while you were out, drinking or using drugs or whatever your vice happened to be. They don't talk enough about what happens afterwards, right? So they talk about, yes, living for the next day, and as long as you get through today without using or without drinking or again, whatever your vice would be, but they don't tell you about the steps after that. Ironically, before we sat down to do this, we were talking about this, and we were talking about how as good as AA is and as good as it's but definitely a good motivator and a good engine to get you moving in the right direction, it almost becomes like a vicious cycle of now, if I stop going to this, you're going to end up right back where you were. And I don't necessarily think that that is always the case. I think everybody on an individual basis, depending on how strong their will is to want to continue a sober lifestyle, is going to really be a good indicator of how successful they are.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's also those other people that I think they need that
Yeah.
constant reminder as to why they're there because maybe their situation is a little bit different. Their struggles are a little bit different. Or unlike you, haven't actually sat down and talked to somebody to really get to the root cause of what it led them to that. I also think that, depending on what vantage point you want to look at it is, some people I think are, yes, are predisposed to addictive behavior. And then there are some people that have had tragic events happen in their life that lead them down the path because till they learn how to be able to face it, they use it as bad analogy, but like the Harry Potter cloak where when he doesn't want to be seen or he's scared, throws the cloak on and he disappears from the world.
Yeah. Right.
That analogy, because not everybody probably likes Harry Potter or has seen it, but if you have seen it, that's essentially what the cloak does. It it removes him from reality just for a little while. Can you talk to everybody about one, where you're at now, and two, what that transition was like from being able to start therapy and get to where you are now? Because anybody who follows the page knows that I try to highlight your content as much as possible because I think outside of the sobriety stuff, there is definitely a lot of message in there about life in general. Where are you at now? And what can you share as far as that transition from becoming sober and then getting your life on a path where you could start to feel happy with yourself and happy with the progress that your life has taken?
Yeah, let's also address a small elephant in the room. I think it's hilarious that a brewing page is highlighting a sobriety content spewing individual, and then a content spewing, or excuse me, a sobriety individual is doing a podcast with somebody with a brewing page. But I think that's, yeah, but it's funny. Everything in life is about balance. So you can have awareness of a drinking world if you don't have awareness of a sober world, and vice versa. So obviously we're friends, so we're able to talk about these things and we support each other. So that's another aspect of it. But I will say this, that a lot of people look at, especially regarding AA or whatever program that they're in, they look at things as a single point of failure instead of multiple points of success. You can't necessarily look at a program that you're in and think that that's the only thing you can do in order to get sober or become successful, whatever your goal is, even outside of sobriety. If you look at sobriety as all I need to do is focus on going to my meetings, and that's it. What happens when you can't go to your meetings? What happens when COVID hits and maybe online meetings, virtual meetings aren't as you're not successful with those? That's a single point of failure for you. And so if you look at multiple points of success, what else can I do to reduce the friction points or my stumbling blocks in order for me to be successful? And that goes far past sobriety. That goes into everything that somebody needs to do. You set yourself up for success by giving yourself multiple vantage points. You set yourself up for success by making sure that anything that you can stumble upon, you're aware of and you reduce them. And you never have a single point of failure, such as I'm just going to go to meetings. And so,
I mean, it's a good point because I think that as good as AA is, just like any other course of treatment and a way to be able to kind of get yourself sober, it's about a program, and the program gives you the tools that you're supposed to be able to use to apply as you're learning how to live a sober life. And as you're training, it's not just your mind, you're training your body how to live without the substances in your body. I think that unfortunately, as good as that program is, and by no means am I knocking the AA program because a lot of people have been very, very successful by going through it. And I think that the program itself is very good. Just like anything else, you're teaching yourself how to live your life differently.
yeah,
And they teach you about where your failures may have been. They teach you about self-reflection. They teach you about not being able to control certain things on your own, like being able to drink and not being able to drink. Like some people cannot have a drink. And I know plenty of people that have gone through that for whatever reason, their body just becomes very dependent on it. Like their body tells them that we need this in order to survive. And then I think there are people that just go through that program that have a drinking problem because they're hiding things. They don't necessarily become physically dependent on it. Although I do really believe that your body does become physically dependent on it after a certain point. In order to be successful, I think you have to be put in a position where now you have to apply what you learn. And unfortunately, I don't think you get to learn that when you consistently go to meetings as your source of how to remain sober.
yeah,
And it doesn't allow you to learn that the strength of going through that is being able to apply it and being able to, like you said, remain sober and fight those urges on your own. Because picking up a phone and calling somebody is great and having the sponsor is great. it's just like anxiety to me. My viewpoint on anxiety is that the narcotics and the stuff they can give you to help cope with it are great. They're great tools to be able to teach yourself how to face your symptoms. But the end goal would be to not be on them and be able to recognize the symptoms of when you start to get anxious and how to address those issues.
That's a single point of failure. A single point of failure is purely relying on a medication in order to keep you level.
Right.
And so you have to have multiple tools. And AA is step one. Now,
100%.
obviously, AA comes with multiple steps. So within that one step, you have multiple steps to make sure that you maintain a level that enables you to get to step two. And so, you call it a sober life. It's
Right.
it's the whole life.
Right.
It's so you're not looking to just say, I want to get sober and the end goal is sobriety. No, the baseline is sobriety. The step one is sobriety
Right.
because the goal is to look at yourself as someone who might be struggling as you've gone through a lot. You've overcome a lot if you've gotten to this point. You're overcoming that is a strength that you can carry forward. But removing the alcohol, removing the substance is the step one to bring you to baseline with other people who don't have those problems. And other people who don't have those problems, their identity is not that they don't have that problem. Their identity is, for better or for worse, how do I then make my life even better now? So for you, someone who is trying to get sober, trying to reduce their reliance on a substance, you're attempting to remove the substance to get the baseline so that you can now have additional steps and goals
Right.
to increase the quality of your life after that.
Right.
So
Not feel like you're trying to get to call it even, right?
yeah,
And not feel like every time you get to even, you end up 3 steps backwards because you made a failure. So the goal is to get to even and stay at even for a period of time just so you can prove to yourself that you can do it.
right.
But how do you get to that first step? How do you start moving to the positive side of things where you're no longer every single day feeling like you're fighting the battle, but now it's not that you've won the war, you've just gotten to a point where you have that confidence in yourself like, I don't need this. I know I don't need this. I know I have the tools in my bag to be successful. But how do you get to the next step?
So you mentioned tools in your bag to be successful. Yes, but the tools in your bag to be successful stop. Your success stops at I'm not drinking today. I'm not using this substance today. You need more tools. You're talking about getting to a baseline. You think the people that don't have a problem with substance abuse, if all they did was just not drink, not use a substance, and they just existed in their life, they would not be happy. And they would then run the risk of going down the same rabbit hole that the person who does use also does.
Mhm.
They need something more to live a fulfilling life. Same goes for you. Someone who is attempting to be sober already has demons that they have to combat. They already have those demons. Do you think that that person can then just live a life of, I'm just going to be sober and I'm not going to reach for anything more? So the whole idea is you've acquired the skills potentially, hopefully, to become sober. Now you need more skills on top of that in order to live that fulfilling life. And not only that, once you start going through the process of reaching for something greater, understanding who you are, it reinforces the reason why you became sober to begin with. You didn't become sober just to exist. You became sober to reach for something more. And that's where a lot of people get stuck because they believe the only thing I need to do today is not drink. And that's true. But once you've not drank, what else are you reaching for? And that's where most people stop because they can't think beyond, they can't move beyond what life could be like without alcohol or without a drug because their definition of success starts and stops at their ability to not use that drug or have that drink.
Do you think at that point, I don't want to like characterize everybody from it, I think most people have goals, right? And they have things that they always want to do in life, whether it's work related, traveling, a hobby, whatever the case may be. Do you think that that would be a time for that individual now that they've gotten to a point where they're sober? And again, like, the goal is to still stay sober every single day,
Right.
right? Do you think that that's a point where now you've been sober for a period of time, you know that you have been successful to this point where now it's time to let's look back through my life and say, these are the things I always wanted to do. These are things that I wanted to try, but I didn't do it because, I was I was handcuffed from whatever that vice was. Do you think that that's part of the next step where you really start looking at those things and going, all right, now which one of these is the one that I can try to achieve while still attempting to make sure that I don't take step backward. What I mean by that is like you don't want to go travel in the world as your first step just because you wanted to,
Yeah.
but maybe you've always wanted to run, like a 5K or do something like that. So your next goal is something simple, like let's just go out for a long walk. Let's do like a run walk or whatever and just slowly ease your way into it so that all that self-confidence that may have been lost because of your vice, that now it gives you another way to say, I'm strong enough to be sober today. And now I'm strong enough to be able to start facing these things. And those little talk about it a lot. Like it's not about the big jumps or that it's just got to take a step forward today. Just one step, whatever it is. Each one of those little steps over time, when you're not paying attention to them, you're not hyper focused on that, you realize that over a period of time, like you think you're still on step one, but you've really moved maybe 3, 4, 5 steps ahead.
Yeah.
It's not gonna be a huge climb, but it's the small things that I think bring success. What do you think would help somebody be able to clear that mindset? And instead of living every single day just to be sober for that day, what do you think is a good step for them to say, let me try to just do one little thing extra, one little thing more to make myself happy, to prove to myself that I have the strength, I have the things that I need, and I feel stable enough where I could start attempting to do these things so that they don't get in that holding pattern where I just need to be sober one more day. I just need to go to a meeting today. I just need to go to therapy today or whatever it is, just to be able to get through that day. Because I think that that becomes almost like a Groundhog Day and you don't get to have the little wins anymore that you got when you first got sober. Like I'm 5 days in, I'm 10 days in, I'm 30 days in. And those are wins, yes. But how do you get your life a little bit better? How do you move to that next step where you can start challenging yourself on other things that will make your life genuinely better and you can start to feel the fulfillment argument, the rush from what you were chasing when you were, not sober, to be able to have those things as successful, positive reasons to keep pushing forward and not worry about, I'm sober today. My goal for tomorrow is to be sober again.
Right. Everybody that, whether they're sober or not, they have goals personally, professionally, romantically.
Mhm.
Everybody wants to achieve something in multiple different areas. And so, you mentioned um, starting small and, you know, Jordan Peterson talks about making your bed. James Clear talks about the power of 1% growth every day.
Mhm.
And all of those things are correct and applicable. It's difficult for me to not go all in. I don't go halfway on anything. I didn't go halfway on drinking. You
You
know,
would not go halfway on drinking.
right. So for me to sit here and say you have to do this because this is what I did, like they tell you don't make any big changes when you come out of rehab. I made all the big changes. I didn't listen to any of the advice other than don't drink, which is the most important advice, by the way, that you can follow. But I don't go halfway on anything. But I understand the benefit of going halfway because there are still things that I attempt to go all in on that I'm not successful at, that if I started small, I would have been successful. So being that people have multiple goals in multiple different areas of their life, they should compartmentalize. They need to feel worthy on any given day. They need to have a social life on any given day. They need to feel like their personal and professional life is moving forward on any given day. And if you do that a little bit, if you do something for yourself that morning that only takes 10 minutes, and like I said, Jordan Peterson talks about making your bed. Yeah, do something for yourself. Make yourself that smoothie. Get up 15 minutes earlier. Get the ball rolling on something that you need to complete maybe that night, but you're going to start it that morning.
Yep.
Professionally, what goals do you have? So a lot of people have these very grandiose goals. Well, maybe start making some of the phone calls that lead into it.
Yep.
Maybe start writing down some of what you can do to accomplish that. And so you need to feel worthy. And people talk about purpose, having a purpose. Yes, a lot of people don't know what their purpose is until a time that it reveals itself to you, not necessarily a time that you identify what it is. And so to identify your purpose or to have it identify you means that life comes full circle. You understand what you're working towards. You understand everything that led up to this point may have been for that. And so if people want to identify like, hey, I want to run this 5K or there's all these things that I've always wanted to do. That's great. But for someone who is an addict, I will use things that I've done or did not do in my past as a reason to keep me stuck in that addict or shameful mentality. Hey, I didn't do something trivial because I was drinking and then feel shame about that. So there are a lot of things that I wanted to do. And maybe even if I wasn't an addict, I probably wouldn't have thought twice if I decided not to do that.
Mhm.
But because I did it while I was an addict, I felt shame for it. So you end up trying to accomplish all the things that you've neglected for many years.
Yep.
So I would say start at the point that you're at. What are the things that you now want to do? And so if the things that you now want to do overlap with some of the things that you've wanted to do, by all means start that process. Or if the things that you wanted to do serve as a baseline, serve as a foundation for the things that you want to do moving forward, yes, accomplish those things. But having shame for all the things that you've done in the past can motivate you moving forward, sometimes in a negative way. So start where you're at and then build the foundation and take baby steps to move forward. And once you gain momentum, you will naturally do a little bit more. And I'll give you an example. A lot of people in the fitness industry, well, I wouldn't say a lot, enough people have this mindset of, no cheat days. If you're going to do it, you're going to go all in. If you're going to have a cheat day, then you're not really serious. And my mentality has always been, if you're going to do something and you need that day, that meal, that break from the gym in order to stay on that path, then you do it. If that's going to be the thing that keeps you on it,
Mhm.
then you do it. Because for me, again, I don't do anything halfway. I didn't have what I would consider a cheat meal for over a year. I didn't have a single cheat meal, not a cheat snack for over a year. I went all in and I was fine with it, but it's not a healthy mindset, right? So there are some people that don't have the same mentality I do when it comes to it. They'll stick to a regimen for 2 weeks and it becomes too much and they fall off completely.
Mhm.
Whereas if you just had that cheat meal and you felt better about the process and it enabled you to move forward through the next week, as you see results at the gym, you naturally will become more strict on for your own benefit. You'll say, you know what? With what I did with my cheat day or with a 4 day on, 3 day off workout schedule or 3 day on, 4 day off workout schedule, I went from here to here. What if I added one more day? What
Mhm.
if I worked out 15 minutes longer? What if I switched my focus? What if I cut out those little extra bit of sweets that I can't seem to let go?
Mhm.
What can I now get to? Because guess what? You've raised your baseline from here to here. And now those 3 days a week that you're working out become easy, become something you don't have to think about. So adding another day becomes nothing for you. Whereas if you went from 0 to 4 days, you're more likely to fall off.
Right. And, it's funny the way you explain some of that stuff because It's almost like an addict when they become sober and you start looking at things the way a normal person does, right?
Yeah.
You don't look in the back anymore like somebody who doesn't have an addiction problem. Like we do think in the past of things that we wanted to do, but the focus is more on right now and what do I still want to do in the future?
Right now.
Right now. And don't get me wrong, I think there's not a single person in the world that has ever looked back at their past and say, "God, I wish I did that when I was, younger or whatever." And I think it's fair to say that somebody who was an addict probably, and I said it and you said it, would look back at that and say, "Well, I didn't do that because of this."
Right.
But it's a good point that the reality of it is people who also don't have those addiction problems or any of that stuff have also done that.
They've also done that.
And
For whatever reasons they have.
right. So at that point, and I don't think you realized that that point alone, if you can get to that part of your life as an addict and being sober and realize that the things that you think you didn't do because you were an addict then are no different than anybody else.
Right.
Without even realizing it, like that's a quality step too,
Yeah.
where you don't have to shame yourself, like you said, about the past and the things you didn't do because you were controlled by a substance at that point. You're not the only person. And and
Yeah.
and it's a real reality. Going back to what we started this with was, like the AA meetings and rehab and that kind of stuff. That's probably a missed point during that process. You do talk about the things that you didn't do or the things that maybe you didn't enjoy because of those vices, but all of us do it.
All
Like
all of us do it.
you may have had a bad day as somebody and you were so pissed off at something so minute where you didn't enjoy the moment when you were at something, right? And we all can look back and say that I really wish that I had just put that aside at that moment so that I can enjoy those things because everybody else is talking about that moment and how great it was, but I ruined it for myself for one reason or another. That's not an addiction problem. That's a human being problem. And that's a great second step for anybody to understand that, like, all right, now I'm sober. And guess what? Some of those failures that I think I blame on this are not necessarily that. It could be for that individual, but like all of us go through that. So don't be so hard on yourself when you get to that step because it's an everybody thing. It's not that thing. So don't use that as a reason to shame yourself even more.
Yeah.
The past will be the past. And again, another point that you kind of bring up is that the past is the past. Can't change the past. It already is what it is, but you can learn from it.
Yeah. It's a perception problem. So, and most people can relate to this. You ever have a great evening, either at a function with a date? You're on a date, you're with your spouse, whoever. You have a great evening with the person that you were with, and then you have an argument at the end of the evening, and you think this whole evening was a waste. You look at the one thing that went wrong and assume that the entire experience was a waste.
Yep.
Addicts can look back at some of the things that they've done and think everything up until that point, like maybe they got drunk at a party and ruined everything.
Mm.
And all they can reference is the fact that they ruined something or they didn't get enough out of an experience because they were drunk. Sometimes it depends on where you categorize some of these past experience that you had. You can't put every experience into a bucket of sobriety. Sometimes you responded because sometimes you responded a certain way because you're an asshole. Sometimes you didn't do that thing because you were lazy. And so a lot of people that are in the sobriety space or they're learning how to become or get into the sobriety space, they look at a lot of past experiences and they will put it within the bucket of, well, I didn't do that because I was drunk. I didn't do that because I was anxious or depressed or yeah, some of those things might have been true and some of those things might have pushed you in that direction.
Mhm.
But sometimes it's just you. And sometimes you, with those issues on top of it, is the perfect recipe to not do that thing. So you remove the addiction, or you don't remove it, but you remove the drink that's in your hand. You understand the reasons why you didn't accomplish a certain thing. Now you don't have the drinking as an excuse.
Right, right, right.
Now you just have yourself, and this is where a lot of people struggle, because once you become sober, now you're stuck with just you, and this is why this is so goddamn important. Once you get sober, you're stuck with just you. All of the problems that you bring to the table will be revealed to you. All of the ways in which you fail yourself, like any individual does,
Mhm.
will be revealed to you.
Yep.
And so, if you don't have the tools to handle that, then you will forever be stuck in that sober step one phase of, I just need to not drink today. I can't
Right.
move my life to the next step because you don't have the tools to get there. You've only ever lived this life under the umbrella of, or the safety of, I'm drinking, therefore my life is as shitty as I expect it to be. Now it's, I'm no longer drinking. My life could be something
Right,
grander,
right.
but now I'm stuck with just me and I don't know how to get beyond me to see what it is that I need to do.
As somebody gets to that point, right, and they really start to make some changes in their life, they're sober at this point. Do you think that as a family and as a friend now, our situation is very different, right? Like, I never changed who I was because of the changes that you made in your life. And I wouldn't unless you asked me to, right? Like, you still come over, we still have our, like the barbecues and stuff like that. There's still people having beverages and all of those things. And I think that you and I have a strong enough relationship where if any of that stuff made you uncomfortable, you would be like, listen, like, I would appreciate it if we didn't have that stuff going on while I was
Yeah.
here. Um, but I think that as family and friends, I think they try to change the dynamic of their relationship with the person recovering, and they remove all of those nuances from the thing. Correct me if I'm wrong. Somebody who is early on in their sobriety or struggles with their sobriety, it almost highlights the fact that they are struggling because the families and the friends go, so and so's coming over, they're a recovering alcoholic, so we can't do any of these things in front of them. And do you think that that's a good thing? Do you think that's part of the crutch? Like the enabler family member who knows that if their family member is addicted to drugs or alcohol or whatever, and they need a little bit of money to get by, but you also know that they're going to spend it to get their fix for the day, and you want them to get sober in the worst way, but you know that you're enabling them day in and day out to help them. Do you think that that mindset transitions into the lifestyle when somebody gets sober, where now instead of enabling them to be that way, now you're hyper highlighting the fact that they are recovered, so now everything is dead silent, and do you think that that person recovering, like, do you think it makes it tougher on them as they go through recovery because the constant reminder of what your life was while you were using? And do you think family members should just continue as business as usual unless the person recovering says, I would appreciate at this point during my recovery that that stuff's not around me? And well, do you think there needs to be a level of transparency from the person recovering and a more of an understanding and less of a reaction to the families and the friends that are supporting that person recovering?
Yeah, so I'll answer in two separate questions. As far as the enablement portion of it,
Mhm.
the people that enable, well, whether they give you money knowing damn well what you're gonna spend it on,
Mhm.
they have their own guilt to deal with. How
Sure.
how how they attempt to move forward, they're probably just happy now that you've gotten sober that they're like, "This person's never gonna ask me for money again."
Right.
And they're relieved. They'll probably overly attempt to help because of the shame that they feel,
For
or
contributing to.
yeah,
Right.
because now they see, like, it's one thing to say that I'm an addict. It's another thing to say, like, I struggled so much I had to go to rehab, and now that person has to feel shame that
Mhm.
they feel like they may have contributed to that process. So they're probably going to go above and beyond a little bit. The set,
Sure. Well, before you move on to that, I don't know if they would say that they contributed to it. They may have, right?
they may
Like,
feel that way. They
but
may,
they definitely contributed to the longevity, the potential longevity of somebody struggling,
yeah, the onus is on the addict.
100%. Right,
Yeah,
right.
you're always from the enabler standpoint, you're always going to assume typically the best of the person who says like, I don't have a problem, or
Right.
no, I'm not going to spend the money that way. Like you're going to assume that, especially that's your family, that's your
Yeah.
friend. So the onus is not on the enabler unless somehow that addiction benefits the enabler, which oftentimes it doesn't. But like, oh, there are some relationships, it's like, this person got their life together, they would be off to better things and they would leave me in the dirt.
Right.
So there is that aspect, although few and far between, I think, in that particular example. But I would say a family has to change, a family and friends could change their surroundings consistent with the part of the process that the addict is in. So
Mhm.
if you look at maybe a parent or a grandparent, especially a grandparent who's sick or maybe susceptible to a disease, you're going to sanitize your environment a little bit until they get past that portion of their sickness to where they can handle things again.
Right.
And so I think it's incumbent upon the person, the family, or the friend to at least ask the question as you did, like, is this something that I need to change? It's also incumbent upon the addict to say, can you do me a favor? And for now,
Mhm.
can we just at least separate it? Or, hey, I can't be around it at all. Like, but knowing me, if I was going to change the dynamic that much, I just wouldn't go. I just wouldn't go. But that's me. Like, I'm not going to have you change your entire life just to satisfy my requirements, because that's just not who I am.
Right.
If I really thought that, hey, hey man, I know when we have this little get together, maybe it's a welcome home celebration. Maybe it's a get together that's something for me, a birthday party, or it's a low level type of celebration. It's not the 4th of July. It's not any holiday where
Right.
there's
Right. Right.
a ton of drinking involved.
Right.
Maybe for those things, hey, can we keep it kind of light this time around? Because
Yeah, yeah.
I'm still struggling.
Right.
So I don't think that it is beneficial for an addict to never go through having exposure to the things that are difficult to them in life. And that is as true for an addict as it is for anybody. If you never expose yourself to the things that are difficult for you will never grow beyond them. You will never gain the strength. You will never see yourself getting beyond that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's true for an addict. Now, again, it has to be consistent to where they are in the process.
Right. Not saying like don't test yourself by going out and being in like a bar or a
Yeah.
tavern or like that's not the environment whatsoever.
I tested myself. I tested myself. I don't recommend it to anybody. I tested myself. I didn't go to a bar by myself. So I'll be very clear about that. When I first came out of rehab, I would walk by alcohol sections, just to see if it did anything for me. When my mother would invite me to a place and I knew there was alcohol there, a dart tournament, a pool tournament, and it was at not a VA, a VFW bar, I would look at the alcohol and I would say, is that doing anything for me? Like, do I desire it or am I struggling with it? I would put myself in that position. I've been to a package store or to a liquor store, depending on where you are in the country,
Mhm.
to see if I struggled with it. I don't recommend that to a single person, but I'm stubborn. I need to know. I need to know for myself, am I gonna struggle with this thing? Can I get back to a life of normalcy, or is this gonna be an additional lift on my part in order to get there? I needed to know for myself, but that's just how I'm wired.
Mhm.
And again, I wouldn't recommend it to anybody, but I'm 100% a firm believer that you need to test yourself. You need to test yourself in life. If
And
you
be honest with yourself with
be honest
wherever you're
with
feeling.
yourself,
Like in that in your example, like if you were that person and you went into the package store just to see,
this is it.
not with the intention of buying anything, but just to see what your mind starts telling you.
Yeah.
You have the ultimate control at that moment to say, "This is too much for me right now." It's okay to turn around and walk out.
I would challenge one thing. It's not always the ultimate control, but the ultimate awareness.
Mhm.
So the addict tends to lose a little bit of control because of the addiction that's still there. The further you go along the process of your sobriety, yeah, you gain some, if not all of that control back. But in the beginning, there's an illusion of control that you don't necessarily have because it's just like someone who walks into a place where they normally get anxious. They walk into that place and their body gets anxious.
Mhm.
They didn't have control over their anxiety. Their body was used to that surrounding, those
Yeah.
people, those smells, those noises, and their body did the work for them. The addict is the same way. You walk into a place that you're normally accustomed to drinking, you walk into a scenario where there's clearly alcohol and you have the same visuals, your body is going to crave it, your mind is going to fixate on it, and you don't have control of that until you start becoming more aware, more present, and you start to
Mhm.
disassociate the meanings of people, places, and things. And if
Right.
not, you get the hell out.
Right.
And if
Right.
not,
Right.
you remove those people from your life if they are associated with the thing that was so horrible. And this stretches way beyond sobriety. This is just, again, and this is what I like to touch on, that sobriety is one thing. How you live your life is another. And there's a lot of overlap between the two. So
Mhm.
a lot of things that I say are not just sobriety related, they're life related, and how we understand life and understand our surroundings and understand ourselves the
Yeah.
most importantly, in order to navigate. So addiction is an outlier effect of things that we do as a species in general. We fixate on something, we desire a substance and experience where our dopamine spikes
Mhm.
and we just have those familiar feelings.
Yep.
And it's just what our body does, our mind does, and again, our mind does as our body follows. And addiction is the extreme version of that. So all of the things that I say apply to the regular human being. I'm just tailoring them based off of my experiences
Right.
and my understanding to the addict because they're the ones that need the most help at that time.
That's the part of your content that I think really resonates with a lot of the people that follow all of my pages, which is like their life things. Like,
Yeah.
yes, it is tailored towards recovery and not all of it. Not all of it is tailored towards that. But like just simple life things. Like, have you ever thought about this? Have you ever thought about like when you do this, this, and this? Have you ever thought about what that looks like or what the result of that is like some of those things? And I think it's important that people understand that, like you said, your content isn't just about the sobriety stuff. It's about life. And it's about life decisions and all of those things that as challenging as they can be at different times, that teaching yourself that you're strong enough to be able to do certain things and challenging yourself at different times to show that, like, you can do this,
Yeah.
it's important, I think in certain circumstances, like, we all get that anxiety, that those butterflies, and we're scared of certain things because 'cause we've never done them before, or we have done them, but you're not confident enough in it to be able to do it again, and most people shy away from it. There's growth that comes by pushing yourself through that, right?
For
And
the most girl.
it's 100%, and when you can teach yourself that it's normal to be scared and anxious to do things, if you didn't get scared of anxious doing things that you've never done before, or have never had to do before, I would probably check and make sure that you have a heartbeat. You might be a robot. I think it's normal, but there's tremendous growth that comes out of that. Like, I am not somebody in this example, like, I am not somebody that enjoys swimming. I've never been a good swimmer. I don't want to be a good swimmer. If fucking God gave me gills, that I would probably enjoy swimming every single time I get in the water, pool, the ocean, wherever. My heart starts beating a million miles a minute. And there's definitely a huge level of stress and anxiety. Like, when I get in there, there is a large potential I'm going to die. But with that said, I still do it because the chance of me dying is probably fucking 5%. But it's more of teaching myself that, like, all of this thing is a natural human reaction to something that you're not confident in. And by doing it multiple times and challenging yourself, it breaks through that, where I'm not going to say it's going to make you arrogant, but it's going to give you the strength to understand, like, yeah, I can fucking do this.
Mhm.
and I can go through these things and I can challenge myself. I think that goes with kind of what we talked about is that you're going to be scared to take that next step in life and challenge yourself to be able to do things like walk into a package store or be at events where people are maybe drinking or any of those things. But the challenge is good. The challenge brings growth. The challenge proves to yourself that like I can do this and not revert back to other things. It's good. It's a good psychological challenge that not enough people do. Too many people, I think, are scared of that anxiety and don't understand that that's some of those things, not all the time, because I don't want to downplay the people that have real anxiety, but some of it is just being scared and some of it is just you being able to talk yourself out of doing something just because you're nervous about it. You're scared about it. And
But it turns into anxiety.
it
Even if it starts off as just fear,
yeah,
it turns into anxiety. And the more you don't do something because you're afraid, the more it reinforces you not doing something because you're afraid.
yep,
Because it is so much easier for you to not do it.
right,
Like there is no like you might have guilt, you might have shame, but there is no backlash from you not doing something that you alone can do when there's nobody else watching
right.
so nobody else knows that you didn't do that thing, but you do.
But you do.
And if you can live with that yourself, then you're just reinforcing that bad.
That feeling, right.
Yeah.
That like I can do what I want, like it's I'm the only one who has to live with that. But I think if people learn anything from those moments, right? And learn anything from taking that next step in life, sobriety, whatever it is, right? Wherever your next step for growth and change is in the direction that you want to go in, is being able to work through those moments. Like
You have to.
hating all of that stuff. I still swam with fucking manatee
Yeah.
in a fucking suit that supposedly made me float, but it didn't.
Yeah.
On a fucking noodle in water that was way too deep. You can't fucking kick. You can't do any of these things. But I did it. And when I got back on the boat, the first thing that I felt was not necessarily a sense of accomplishment because I was still scared to death while I was doing it. It was so fucking happy I did that.
Yeah. So,
Like
interesting
it's a once in
story.
a life or once in a lifetime opportunity.
Yeah.
I was if I had the shit, I probably would have shit myself getting in the water to go do that,
Yep.
but it didn't happen. I didn't die, and I'm so glad that I did it because I might not have an opportunity like that in my life to do that again.
Right.
Chances are, like, could I if I wanted to? Yes. Would I? Probably not because
A lot of things have to align for you to do it again.
100%.
Yeah.
But I'm so happy I did it, and it was just a matter of saying, like, "I have to do this.
And now
I want to do this.
you
I want to experience this."
now you can't say that I that I've never done
That I
that.
hopped out, that I sat on the
Yeah.
boat
Mm.
while everybody else did it.
So I was in UAE going scuba diving and on a random day off and decided to take a trip scuba diving. Now, me having panic attacks kept it very light. I wasn't having a panic attack that day, but I didn't know how I was going to be underwater. I'd never had flippers on. I've never waded through water
Mhm.
where I couldn't touch the bottom for that long a period of time with these flippers on. It felt like I was out of control.
Mhm.
I've never moved with things just attached to my feet. I'm like, how do I move in these fucking things? So I'm underwater. I'm doing my thing. I'm with a group of other people and I see a shark and I don't know what to feel about that. I'm nervous.
Yep.
This whole thing makes me nervous.
Yeah.
And so I'm looking for context clues. I'm like,
Does anybody else
does anybody
shark?
see? I'm like, there's a lot of fish. They're swimming around. They don't seem frightened. Maybe the shark already ate. Maybe the shark's not acting aggressive and that's why the fish aren't scared because the shark already ate. And maybe I'm safe. But I had no idea.
Mhm.
I'm sitting there looking around like I couldn't escape if I wanted to. First time
You're not out swimming it.
I'm out swimming it. Uh, especially in flippers that I've never put on before, I'm gonna look awkward dying. So,
Sounds like a bad meme.
it sounds like a bad name. But what I did was I accomplished something. I was able to go through that experience, not for nothing, I swam with a shark that wasn't intentional. And then once the shark passed, I was able to see all the beauty around me.
Mhm.
That random turtle that was hanging out on a giant rock. I was able to see all these things from a different viewpoint because I just experienced something that scared me.
Mhm.
And so, and once you're done with that, you always have that experience. I can now tell you almost 10 years later that I swam with a shark in the Arabian Gulf. Yeah, and that's awesome. I would never have been able to say that if I scared myself out of
Right.
going in that water.
Yeah.
And so a lot of people live their lives this way where they'll put a ceiling on themselves. They'll put a cap as to what they believe that they can do because they've never done it, because they can't envision themselves doing it.
Mhm.
I do it still every day. There's always a higher level of that I can take on any given thing on any given day where if I just went for it, if I just put myself out there, if I just jumped on a desk and yelled out all the things that, I believe in, but chances are it would go wrong. Um, but there's always something that you can do that makes you feel awkward that's going to make you feel empowered when you're done.
Right. Yeah.
And people don't take that next step, and that's fine. You don't have to go from normal to desk hopping, but you can put yourself a little bit outside your comfort zone. Something that triggers that anxiety, show yourself you can do it.
Mhm.
And if you really believe in the process of getting better at this thing and reducing your anxiety, it's one thing to say, I wish I didn't have anxiety. It's another thing to say, I'm not going to go to the gym because I have the social anxiety, and not put in the work to say, okay, within that context, what can I do? Well, maybe I'll go to a gym that's less populated. Maybe I'll go to a gym
I'll go at a different time
on
when
an
it's less
half
people.
hour. Yeah. Or I don't know how to use that machine. I'm going to go there bright and early in the morning when nobody's there and learn how to use these machines. There are things that you can do.
Yeah.
And I bring up the gym thing because, well, it's easy for me to bring up, but also because it's very relatable and it is an area that people tend to struggle with. And so if you're going to be serious about getting beyond certain limitations, you also have to be serious about the steps that you take to get beyond it.
And be willing to challenge yourself to get beyond those steps. And don't be scared to challenge yourself. I think the moral of this episode would be that regardless of your circumstance, right, where your struggles may have been, is that the way to success and the way to be able to show yourself some growth, some added growth outside of all of the treatment and all of that stuff would be, don't be scared to take that risk. Make sure your risk is reasonable. Like nobody's saying go jump off a bridge or whatever, but you know, take the baby step, take that little step forward just so you can prove to yourself with the small wins, a half a step, a full step, whatever it is, small wins lead to growth, lead to success, lead to long term success. Challenging yourself daily in some capacity. There's truth to that 1% thing. Like, just do something slightly different today or slightly challenging today that you didn't do and try to be successful at that every single day for this week
Yeah.
and see how to hold yourself accountable when you fail. Be honest with yourself about the failure because the failure brings also growth. You learned what worked and you learned what didn't work.
I will leave it at this. If you are somebody who is always good at what they do or never gets scared to trying something or in trying something new, what are you doing listening to this podcast? What are you doing listening to me?
Yeah.
Why aren't you doing everything possible to be at the most successful you could be?
Right.
So,
And if you're winning all the time, you're not challenging yourself enough.
right, right. So the idea is that there are very few people in this world that are beyond successful because they were so good at every single thing that they did.
Mhm.
Everybody's scared of something. You are not different than the next person. You, whether you're an addict or not, you are not different than the quote unquote normal person or the addict because you struggle with something.
Right.
You are the definition of normal. So the thing that separates people, the differentiator, is not their fears. The differentiator is what are the tools that you have to move beyond that? What is your capacity to withstand that fear? And like you said, you're going to have fear. And you just need to be aware of it. It's not don't fear the fear. Don't don't stop because there is fear. Just be aware of it.
Mhm.
Be aware that there's fear and take one step
Yeah.
forward beyond that.
Reasonable risk.
Reasonable risk.
That's the way to growth. So with that said, wrap up this episode. Joe, always a pleasure, you coming on. Shamelessly plug all your Instagram pages.
Yeah, so it's the next 24 on both Instagram and TikTok, and the E in the is the letter 3. So it's TH3 next 24 Instagram, TikTok.
So jump on there. If you have a hard time finding it, definitely check out my pages, the Brewed for Life podcast on Instagram and Baines Brewing on Instagram. And there are definitely links and reposts and stuff of Joe's stuff. So again, thank you guys so much for listening, and we'll catch you next week.
Thanks for having me.